गुड मॉर्निंग and welcome to Gunner Shot. Gunner Shot में आप सबका स्वागत है. Today we're going to discuss about deflating Dragonomics. The dragon is deflating, have no doubts about that. But why are we getting into the dragon when there's a war raging in the Middle East between Iran and Israel, and any time now USA is going to jump in and everything? Well, the reason is simple. Like I told you yesterday, in my analysis, I felt there's a decision pause or a decision dilemma between Israel and USA, and things will unfold today. Even if things don't unfold today, by evening, I think we'll get some clarity on what's happening. Well, it's still midnight in Iraq, or maybe early morning in Iraq, and things would be happening, and we'll get something in. So that's why I said let's talk of the Iran and Israel war in the evening, and I'll do it on alternate media. That'll be at 7:30 in the evening. And new issues are coming up, which are far beyond what we thought. Things are not as simple as they are. But in this process, I thought let me talk of China. Why? If you notice in the past 1 week, 10 days, ever since this is the 7th day the war is on, 6, 7 day, whatever it is, whichever depends on the time zone you are. Uh, uh, there is something happening in China, and China was supposed to be a superpower, and things like that. And if you remember, all these things were being touted about: BRI, Global Security Initiative, Global Development Initiative, Common Destiny of Mankind, all this, and they came out with a white paper recently, right? Which the white paper actually gave something away. It indicated that the party's grip on the people was not strong enough, and they indicated there was an environment of growing external threats which would have internal problems. Oh, very clearly, which I did mention at that point of time also, China has started looking inwards for many reasons. Only inwards. It has not had a say in this, except that it came out, anodyne statement came out, oh, you need peace between Israel and Iran, Middle East, this, that, and all that. And, so we are prepared to pay the peacemaker. Who's interested in China as a peacemaker? I mean, one should not forget that there's a strategic deal between Iran and China, where China was to put in about 400 billion or 500 billion over the next 10, 15 years in return for discounted oil, which went against everyone else. Well, but then I have no problem with it because that was a deal between Iran and China, 1-to-1. But China is letting Iran down, or let me put it the other way: China is not capable of supporting Iran at this point of time. Yeah, they say that 2 military planes came with their transponders off, landed up in Iran, and must have given some spares and all that. But beyond that, what? Zero. Or the more, what shall I say, the way I look at it, the way I think, have those 2 planes carried out the enriched fuel? In which case, Iran has lost it. And I don't think that could have happened. And that's also possible. After all, how much is that enriched uranium? Just about 400 kg. If that has gone from Iran, then Iran has lost it. It's lost its trump. So that I don't think would have happened. And I don't think there's enough trust between Iran and China to send this enriched uranium to China. So China is sitting on the sidelines and it's not able to do anything. Why? I mean, that's a question. And if you see, in fact, today, for the past 3 days, I've been listening to Lay's Real Talk and all that. She's on a tangent of something drastic likely to happen in China. And, already Xi Jinping is out of control. Zhang Yuxia has taken over and all that. At this point of time, well, she must be having her logic and she gives a lot of logic. But the thing is that all this logic is based on rumor. It's based on rumor. So, whereas we need to go on facts, what's going to happen? What this chap said, what that chap said in a party meeting, all that. She must be having sources. I have no doubt about it. I'll not I will not question her authenticity. But these are things to be taken with a pinch of salt. So what do? We buffet it with facts. You see, take facts, take these rumors, put them together, and form a mosaic, and then you understand what's happening in China. So today we're not going to talk too much of politics as much as the internal issues which are going on, because that will tell you a lot about what's the external thing, maybe in the next analysis, because this whole story is too big to be analyzed in one go, right? This is an ongoing analysis, right? So we did talk of this, BRI, SHRI, and all that nonsense. But interestingly, Z might be down, but he's not out. He's right now in Kazakhstan, in the China Central Asia Summit. This is very important. This is the thing. Today he's there. Look, Xi Jinping won't go to Kazakhstan if there's a problem at home. 2 years back, he was in Kazakhstan in a SCO meet when there was an issue, and he immediately quit and came back. That was the time they said there's likely to be a coup against. There was likely to be a coup, or rather, they said there is a coup which has happened, and so Xi Jinping had to rush back and all that. And once from South Africa, he landed up directly into Tibet in Lhasa, and from Lhasa he took a train to Beijing. And those were times, and he then spoke of color revolution and all that openly. So I think that was a critical time and all that. And the evidence is that whenever there's a problem, Xi Jinping has never left China, or he's rushed back to China. In this case, he's gone to Kazakhstan, and Kazakhstan has got a lot of equity in China and vice versa. Because if you've been to Kazakhstan, they have uranium, they have gas, they have oil, everything. And there are no people. You'll go vast areas of Kazakhstan, there's no one. I've been there. And I've driven in large stretches of Kazakhstan. Desolate places and all that. Oh, now there's all this talk about official successor and this and that and all that. Well, there's a struggle on, there's no doubt. Let's be clear. If Xi Jinping was not sure of the outcomes of whatever is happening in China, he wouldn't have gone out. That is something we should be very clear. Okay. There is a faction which is against him. There's no doubt. There is a huge challenge on him. He could have gone out if they have come to a common thing. Okay, this is what it is. This is what it is. This thing. But knowing Chinese history, I don't think it's so easy. I don't think of that at all. What we know is that he's not well, and eventually he'll get replaced. I don't see him going in beyond 2027. First, he has to survive till then. So there is everyone jockeying into place. Xi Jinping himself has entrenched loyalists, right? So it's not, yeah. There's one chap who's trying to talk nonsense, so I've just banned him. So the point is that one shouldn't place too much thing. So let's go by what we can see. There's a faction of Zhang Yuxia, Hu Chunhua, and Wang Yang who are vying for power, or they might have an alternate power structure which is going. Xi Jinping is still there; he's not vanished, and how things will happen, we'll see. We'll see, right? But going by facts, he's still in power, right? But this buffeted by this, he's given an address out. I mean, these things are indications that he's still in, the chair. And what he says, look, go back to the pioneer of economic planning. I don't know who he is, and he is given this updesh. And people say that no, he's not doing anything and he's not giving any talk and all. I don't agree with it. He is, right? and he's telling the Communist Party and everything. So, is it part of a organized exit? It doesn't look like. And who knows? Given a little time, he might recoup and capture the whole story. The only thing which goes mitigate against this whole story is that he's not in good health. Okay, so we'll leave that politics as it is. So one thing is clear: China's internal politics are at this point of time weighing heavily on them, and then they're not able to look out. He had to go to Kazakhstan because the pipelines from Kazakhstan coming. There's energy security from Kazakhstan and the Central Asia. And there are issues between, we'll talk later. In this business of Central Asia only, there is a bit of a rift. I won't say rift, there's likely to be issues with Russia. And we'll talk of that. And the Russia-China relations could be changing. We'll talk of that. There are indications coming from China, which I actually picked out today morning. Okay. What is the biggest weigh down on Chinese economy? It's still the property. Property matters. They have not been able to find an alternate to property as a development engine of Chinese economy. Property, infrastructure, roads, HSR, all that story, that investment model. There's no alternative. It's been 2-3 years now and there's no alternative. All the alternatives are heading into disasters. Look at this. They don't want to go the old path. They have no real new path coming up, right? As per this article. And then this I had discussed 2 weeks back. This is an old one from Kexen. Any analysis you do, they say, look, property. Property remains central to everything. And that analysis is ongoing. Okay. And Michael Pettis, if you want to know about what's happening in China's economy, everything, go to Michael Pettis. He's my one-stop guy, actually. Though, of course, I read more, but I read him very deeply for only one reason. Michael Pettis is a professor of economics in Tsinghua University, is based in China. He's also attached with Carnegie and he writes articles there. And he gives you a real insight and he analyzes what others write also and gives his views. Now this is a Bloomberg report and he's analyzed it. And of course, when Michael Pettis analyzes a Western thing, it carries weight. That's why it's only here that I get, Western viewpoints and put it across to you. When there's an analysis of a chap who knows China well. Now he says home prices have been dropping still. And some of the sharpest declines have happened in the past 8 months. Last month, April, May. So things are not good. Things are going back to worse in China. I mean, there'll be a lot of dressing anywhere else, but things are not great. Okay. And then this is very interesting, which is analyzed, but I'm just putting the thing out. He says, look, this Goldman Sachs report suggests that the demand for China's property will be below 5 million units annually going into future. Maybe the next few years, it could be 5-10 years. But the peak was 20 million units in 2017. This is facts. So the property sector is down by 75%. If the property sector is down by 75%, there are no new sales. People in China are still stuck with mortgages which they are repaying. The flats in which they are staying, their rates have gone down. Many of them are stuck with flats which they have not got but with the mortgage. The bottom layer, that's the people are in pain. And it reinforces what I keep saying, that China is a rich state with poor people. And the people are getting poorer. And I'll prove this as we go along today. Right? And transactions have also decreased. And this is interesting. Zhejiang is the first province to issue special bonds to buy unsold homes. How does this work? This is a very, very, very dicey thing which is happening in China. I won't say dicey thing. This is a normal thing happening in China. I look at it as a very dicey thing. What is the story? If you go into the story, how does it operate? So there are a whole lot of unsold homes. So this county, Zhejiang, they said, okay, we'll issue bonds. You see, there's one funny thing about China. The local governments can issue bonds. In India, no local government can issue bonds of this nature without taking RBI clearance. But in China, it's rampant. Okay, they got a lot of flexibility. Earlier, it used to be called LGFVs, local government financial vehicles, special financial vehicles, and all that. But that stopped. Now they're issuing bonds. So how does this bonds work? So you issue out bonds, and those bonds are taken by people and institutions, right? It's like a Ponzi scheme, actually. It's actually a Ponzi scheme. So you get money out of those bonds, then you go back and buy those unsold homes. And when you buy the unsold homes, who gets the money? The property developers. And the property developers are hand in glove with these local governments. That's one circle which is completed. And they say that in these unsold homes, they'll put poorer people. Common prosperity is the thing. But who will repay this? There's no law. There's no indication as to how these governments will repay these, or when these bonds mature, how will they be redeemed? How will they repay the interest? Okay, who will buy it? So this Ponzi scheme is on. When this Ponzi scheme will burst, I don't know. Look, this Ponzi schemes of this kind are not peculiar to China. They happen everywhere. Okay, it's not new. But in China, it's taking new dimensions. So let's see where it goes. Okay. Now the car manufacturing has entered the slow lane officially. Okay, we've only spoken of it so far. No. Geely has stopped building new cars. They've just stopped. The factory has just stopped. Thank you. Okay. There's a new price wars. We knew it. It's there. And then, of course, Evergrande is in a liquidity crisis. Why am I talking of this? Property was an engine which drove China's economy. Now, when property sector collapsed and all that, Xi Jinping shifted, and Xi Jinping and Chinese economy, they shifted to exports, EVs, new productive thing, electronic vehicles, batteries, solar power, and all that nonsense. Now, all that is now hitting a roadblock. All that is hitting a roadblock. Either factories are closing down or the price wars are taking place, quality is down, everything. They are talking of Evergrande crisis. It's not me. This is a Chinese article which talks of Evergrande crisis. So that's Spain. So this has entered a slow lane. So if your property is not taking off, your exports are collapsing, and trade war is still on. The tariff war is still on. So where is China going? Naturally, it's a whole lot of economic weakness inside, and there's deflation. And there's deflation, whether you like it or not. And that's why I said deflating Dragonomics. So if there's deflation in your country, how can you go to, and play a role in the world affairs? Please remember, G7, G8, whatever you call it, is happening in Canada, and China is not even spoken of. Not even spoken of. Not even discussed. Now, Xinhua comes out with this. There are consumer wars still on. People are not buying. Because why are people not buying? People don't have money, as simple as that. But they'll come out with this kind of a propaganda. China's consumer spending grows at faster pace on policy support. So when you see such things, everyone thinks, oh, China is recovering. But is it recovering? Again, I go back to Michael Pettis. He's done an analysis on this. This is something which is very interesting. I'm not going to bore you with that analysis because that's economic hocus pocus, which beyond me many times. And I don't think I should bore you with all that. But let me get the crux of this. He says, and he's analyzed this particular article, right? That's why I brought it back. And he says, okay, read this fully. He says, remember that if China has to become a normal, low consuming economy over the next decade, 10 years more, consumption will have to contribute to at least 80% of GDP growth during that time. Just think, unless consumption constitutes 80% of GDP growth for the next 10 years, it will not even become a low consuming economy. I mean, don't ask me how he's done it. He's given a lot of logic, which, to be very frank, at times has been beyond me. Last year, it contributed only to 45%. Before COVID, it only contributed to 60%. And that was 60% when the Chinese economy was firing on all cylinders. So now, if it's only contributed to 45% of your economy, that's your consumption. In our country, it's about 65% or more. And that's how it is. That's why we say no one can stop you because you're a consuming economy. Thank you. And consumer prices are falling. Deflation, weak demand, trade tensions. If your prices are falling, you're deflating. Local governments don't have money, so their subsidies also, they're running out of subsidies, capability of giving subsidies. So at one point of time, they're trying to give subsidies by bonds, and all that. And if that doesn't happen, if they are got out of that thing, they're not able to give subsidies. If they're not going to give subsidies, there's consumerism. There's no consumption. And these festivals are the time when they can consume and eat, and all that's not happening. Shenzhen wants to give subsidies at local levels. How far will it go? Nowhere. Then there is this communist thinking. This is an article from Guancha which says very clearly there is a hardcore communist thinking. He says, why should we bother about consumption? Go back to the old story of production and this and that and all. So, for China to shift to a consumption-driven economy, market-driven economy, it's not going to be easy because there are a whole lot of communists sitting within China who have opposite views. And they express it. So there is a struggle within China to come out of its own grips. Okay, now let's get to tariff war because there is an issue here which we have to understand. Chinese factories have started going to Egypt and setting it up. Same thing. Earlier, in the earlier set of tariffs, what did they do? They went to Vietnam, Malaysia, all these places to set up their factories. Now those places are also under high tariff rates. And USA is wizened up to it. And they are putting the squeeze on Vietnam, which Vietnam is the main hub. But in this entire tariff business, Egypt is not included. Egypt and Israel were excluded from Trump's tariffs. Okay. Now Chinese are going to Egypt to sell from there. See, they don't have a choice. They have to go anywhere. And China and Egypt have good equations. Why? Egyptians are under debt of China. So now factories are going there. Now let's see how USA will operate. And of course, US tariffs have hit in May. The exports to China have gone down. They hope that June will be better, but let's see. But this is interesting. China is unleashing a new export shock on the world. Fundamentally, what it is doing. What it's doing is very simple. And very, very simple. I can't export to USA. So I'm dumping my stuff all over the world. So the world is getting cheap stuff, and which means people who have not put barriers against China, those items will come into their markets, and those markets will get followed out. Look, if I mean, let me put it this way, in terms of dumping, I'm sitting in, say, Sri Lanka. Sri Lanka doesn't have barriers against China, and Sri Lanka makes this phone. China comes with an alternate phone and says, I will sell it at half rate. So Sri Lankan factories will finish off. It's logical, isn't it? It happened with us. So now China's newest thing is this. And in fact, this is the way they're going. This is the map which they've shown from China where all things are going. Right? And this, of course, this blue one is that Belt and Road line and all that. So all over, it's going to Europe, it's going to Africa, some part they're trying to dump in India also, and we have to be wise to it. And this is where India has to be smart. Other countries might or might not depend on China, it depends on them. But, it can't be that to support Chinese production, you buy and your own production and your own manufacturing collapses. That's the danger which is now coming up. Chinese also won't be too keen to resume all their export to China, USA, because now someone will come and do something else, and that production lines will get snapped. So that worry is there in China. When you read all these articles, you come to know. So, but this is important because we have to understand what China is up to. So, what does India do? India must block this. As simple as that. To some extent, we are blocked, but what we should not, there's a view in government. Oh, it's okay. Let the cheap items come. The cheap items will come, make them cheaper, and all your cheaper manufacturers will get wiped out. That's the danger. So we have to put things in place to save our economy, not to block China. Blocking China is saving your economy. Are we doing it? I don't know. I don't think so. I mean, I've not seen this because this issue has not come in anything. Okay, we can block certain high-tech things, all that. But so far, our government feels that we can allow lower-end items, low-tech items to come in. Look, we need to understand this trend line. We shouldn't be the engine which replaces USA for Chinese growth. And that's something I thought I'll put across to everyone. Okay, now let's look at the job sector. The jobs are bad. The jobs are bad. Now they're looking at funny sectors like culture and, tourism to revive their jobs. If that is what they're looking at, because of projecting culture, tourism, we will employ youth and employment there and all that, they are in a bad shape. All these indicate to you where China is. Okay. This is important. Austerity. China has gone into a huge austerity drive. Such austerity was last seen during COVID, when their thing nosedived. And suddenly, in the past 2 weeks, 3 weeks, a whole lot of articles on austerity are coming out of China, which means things are really bad. And Xi Jinping has put, a lot of checks and balances for this austerity. He's talking of it. He's ensuring people are, checking people, all that. We'll just see. Look, that's one. Now, this came out yesterday, this article. It says China doubles down on austerity, but not with a Trump-style dodge approach. Whatever that approach is, they are very worried and they are implementing austerity very seriously. Okay, there is belt tightening happening. They are talking of white elephants, lavish meals and flowers and all that. It is all that gone. Now, what will happen? If you don't have lavish meals, you don't have, flowers being given and, all those fancy expenditures which Chinese are fond of doing. look, it's going to hit their economy in some manner. Why are they doing it? Because their economy is bad. If they don't do it, all those businesses will go. So there's a multiplicative downward spiral going on in China. So we have to be very clear about what's happening in China. I mean, this whole story today is not to give you some breaking news. The whole idea is to tell you, look, what's happening in China. Keep a pulse on China's. I mean, keep your fingers on China's pulse. That's the whole idea. Okay. There's check going on to keep this austerity. Vigilance people are going. Internally, people are going inspecting whether firms and establishments and institutions are following this austerity drive. I mean, all this can only happen because there's no money. There's no money. As simple as that. Look at this. China's bankers ditch global hotel chains as travel budgets bite. So you can't go to a 5-star hotel. You can only go to a 4-star hotel, smaller hotels. That's the thing which is coming. 3 months back, I remember I read an article and I did discuss it in one of these episodes. The number of 5-star hotels in China have dropped. They have dropped by over 20% in the past 2 years. And again, this came from Guancha with a graph. So if people stop going to 5-star hotels, then you can understand. And these are international brands, national brands, jo bhi hai, people are not going. So austerity has implications, and it has always had implications in China. Then let's talk of demography. Reuters came out with an article on demography, and in this they've spoken of the divorce rates. Oh, Yu Fuxian, who's the demographer who's sitting in USA, he knows China's demography very well. He says China's divorce rate increased from 2% in 2020 to 6% in 2024. So look at it. We spoke of demography some time back. Their divorce rates are going up. This is despite the fact that the local governments and the government is making, it difficult for people to divorce. People can't divorce easily in China. Despite that, the divorce rates are going up. And this map gives you who are divorcing where. I mean, it's very funny. Here, if you see on the eastern coast, the divorce rates are less. And why is divorce rates less in the eastern coast? Because the marriage rates are less. Divorce rates are higher in places where, marriage rates are higher. There's a correlation between marriage rates and divorce rates. But either way, either divorce rates are increasing and marriage rates are decreasing, what happens? Fertility, birth rates are all going down. This is a spiral which China is not able to get out of. Very, very simple and straight. Now they're saying, okay, tackle the male for the demographic crisis. So childcare subsidies and all will go to the parents or father. They're doing all kinds of research and all that. Nothing is going to work. Nothing is going to work. But it is occupying their mind. Again, let me put it across to everyone. The demographics of China at this point of time are not that bad. I did give you those graphs. It's not that bad. But going ahead, it's going to nosedive. And they know it. They know that they are on a slippery slope. You see all this. You see, if you are in a crisis, you could be in a crisis. There's no problem. Who will bail you out? Who will bail us out? It's the people. It's the people who have to bail you out. If your exports don't work, if your investment is not working, your people have to bail you out. One, you don't have people. Two, the state has made the people poorer. So how will the state come out? If the state has also invested, like I said, it has invested heavily into defense, which is not productive for them, which I did the 10 reasons of decline. So the state has invested into high tech, which is not productive for them. It's not giving them profits. It's not giving them jobs. It is not giving them fundamental things for the people, and the people are vanishing. So how will this state go up? This is a question I'm going to keep posing, and this is something which we need to understand. How do you keep China down? Build a wall against it. And that wall is not in the northern borders. The wall is on your trade. You put trade barriers and grow your own industry, you'll see India racing ahead. Okay. This is from Guancha. It says nursing houses. This article is about nursing homes. He says nursing homes are not being well managed. The nursing homes and the health system in China are not catering for the aged. They're enough. Why? There's no subsidy. If the subsidy is not given to the nursing home, the old age care is not taking place. So many of these old age cares are ill-treating the elders. So there's a societal problem. See, all these are just the 2 years back, you didn't see such articles. Now they're appearing. You have to keep seeing China from Chinese views. Look, I don't, like I told you, I don't go by Western inputs. I go by Chinese inputs. What is there in their media? For example, today, our media, everyone talks of the, crash of 171 and Dreamliner, safety, EAO. That's the thing which is dominating our media, isn't it? They talk of Manipur, talk of those issues, you talk of your economy. That's what happens in all our media. And that's how when you read the entire media, you come to know what's happening. Same here. This kind of analysis tells you what's happening in China. So that you can you don't need great intelligence. In fact, in terms of intelligence, 80% of intelligence come from OSINT. And 80% of that comes from newspapers. That is why I focus on newspapers. Don't think, newspapers tell you the truth. After all, if you are sitting in a city, if you want to know what's happening in your city, where will you come to know? No one will tell you, isn't it? You read newspapers, you read social media, all that. Chinese social media, we can't see. Okay, what filters out of it is peripheral. So this is important to read their media. Okay. Everyone thought AI will be the panacea of all ills. What you look at this article, it is their analysis. What does it say? AI might be the answer to China's labor woes. Okay. If you don't have labor, AI, but could also fuel deflation. This analysis tells you exactly how AI is going to fuel deflation in China. You have to read it to believe it. Okay, you have to read it to believe it. Because profits are going to reduce. People are not going to be employed. So if people are not going to be employed, they don't have money. If people don't have money, they can't buy. If people can't buy, prices will reduce. Deflation will set in. So all their high-tech things are also going to add to deflation. If you see, that's the thing which you think, that is follows ahead in AI and everything will be nice and all. It doesn't happen that way. It just doesn't happen. Now, see the societal churn which is happening there. If you are a rich kid's son, banks are helping you go abroad, get internship and all that. But if you don't have adequate bank accounts and money in the bank, you're not being helped. And there is an internal pushback, societal issues. And in a closed door society like China, where nothing much comes out, these are the straws which you pick. 4 such straws and you come to know what is happening. Okay. This indicates, which I did speak 2 days back. This article is very interesting. What they have done is that they have started growing some wheat in desert areas. Okay, this they've successfully got something for about this experiment they've done over 40 hectares, small piece of land. What is 40 hectares or 400 hectares? Very small, right? But they've done this successfully, and they've said Xinjiang has turned salt desert into fertile farmland in food security push. Why? Food security in China is at risk, huge risk, which often doesn't get isn't understood by people. And tomorrow, link this to what's happening in the Middle East. If the Gulf of Hormuz is closed, or if tomorrow there's regime change in Iran and they don't get the cheap oil and China can't invest in Iran, what happens to their energy security? What happens to many things? And they're sidelined. And US is very clear that they're not going to allow China to get ahead. So they're going to twist their tail. And in that part of the thing, if say they threaten Malacca, then their food security is at stake. As it is, there's expanding desertification in China. The arable land in China is going down. 2 years back, they started a program where they had to reclaim arable land, where old buildings and all were there. They threw them out, and they started reclaiming it. That was a fiasco. That's a different story. Where not everything which happens in China is well thought of and everything. There are a lot of fiascos. And China historically is worried about famines. If there's one thing which China is always, the Chinese people are worried is about going hungry. And this you find, because they have gone through phenomenal famines in the last century. And that is why I've always said that every 5-6 months, Xi Jinping has gone to some place where, farmland, and it talks of having your own iron bowl in your hand. This is something which is, we underestimate. The tendency for most of us is to look at, solar and EV and what's happening outside, Sinocentric world order and all. The Sinocentric world order internally in China is weak. These actually confirm all your things. And today there is a clear race to supplant China as the prime supplier of rare earths. Earlier, people were talking of 10 years. Within 10 years, Chinese share will come down. As per this analysis, it's likely to come down in 1 year. So China is suddenly realizing that, look, my grip on rare earths, magnets and all that might not last more than 1 year, 2 years. Thank you. I mean, like I always say, rare earths are not rare. They are available. It's only that they are not available in adequate concentration all over the earth. In fact, the amount of rare earths which are lying all over the world is more than the deposits of tin and copper in the world. They're not available in adequate concentrated capacities, but there are places where they are available in mineable quantities. But mining them is huge environmental issues. China has used that gap that others don't want to mine, so we'll do it. So they have started, but others are now catching up. Others are breaking contracts to say we will not give to China. In fact, India itself has stopped export of rare earths to anyone. We were giving it to Japan. We said, no, hereafter you come and invest here, have that rare earth factory here, and we have equity in that rare earth. So that rare earth metal is with us, and so that we have rights over that product and not others. Get technology, trade technology for raw material. It's a tactic which is working. It will work. And as far as own this thing, this was called IREL, Indian Rare Earths Limited, which is based in Trivandrum. I've done a show on that. I'll repeat it because certain new things have come up in this whole game, which I think gives us a lot of hope. But we have to put in a lot of effort. But the fundamental thing why I brought this is this. China is at risk on this issue. And then Panama Canal, China wanted to scuttle the deal of C.K. Hutchinson and all that 2 months back. They did it. But now Panama has said, China still wants to retain control of the Panama Canal. Panama has now said, forget it. You don't behave the way we want, we're going to nationalize it. And China started coming into place. So there are issues which are now coming up one by one. Another issue, now their nuclear stockpile is growing. It's going to be huge, and that's money. Every naya paisa you put or every yuan you put into your nuclear stockpile is not available for your development. You might have 5,000 or 1,000 nuclear weapons. You can't use them. That's what you can see. What's the thing? Not even one. And today evening when I discuss, let me trip the whole story. There's a reactor at a place called Bushehr in Iran. It can be knocked off tomorrow. But if you knock off that reactor, it will be a Chernobyl kind of a disaster. Is that what is required? No. Isn't it? Same thing for China. Now, you put money into this, you can't use your nuclear weapons. I'm used the nuclear reactor as an example. But all these nuclear weapons you can't use. So if you can't use them, you don't have that minimum, you can do with minimum deterrence. People say India should expand its, stockpile and what for? You don't need to. What you have is good enough. After that, why spend money on nuclear assets which China has done? Or trying to do, thinking that it will get more power and leverage. It won't. Right? And to me, it's good news. Let them keep expanding their nuclear arsenal. Okay? Because if you expand your nuclear arsenal, you expand your military arsenal, you expand your property, you expand all those nonsense things, China is going down. It's going down. Because it's not giving you influence. And now USA started issuing threats, saying that, look, all those exercises which you do around Taiwan are rehearsals. Don't worry, we are watching. When this Iran and Israel thing gets over, US focus will be where? There. Right? So, now this is today morning. About 2 weeks back, there was a memo which was leaked from Russia. And that memo said that China is our enemy, not our friend. And we treat China as our enemy. Internal memo. It was leaked intentionally. Now it has caught fire. Now they are analyzing. That's what he says in China-Russia relations, power speaks louder than friendship. So that friendship is getting frayed. The Russia-China friendship is getting frayed. And it will get even more frayed after this Iran-Israel thing gets over. So you will find that China-Russia axis, if it breaks or gets frayed, the Chinese power will go down. And that crux anyway is done. And though Russia is trying to join hands, and China is very keen of this RIC. So is Russia. But I don't think this is a dead duck. I don't think this will be ever spoken of unless there's some romantic chap who says, oh no, Russia, India and China should form an alternate triangle. That will never happen now. Especially after what's happening in the Middle East. Now, if you think China is the master of South China Sea, sorry. Vietnam has started operating off a few islands in Spratlys. They built their own infrastructure on Spratlys, and they have quietly built runways and they're operating aircraft there. All this happened in the past 2 years. And China has not been able to do anything because China has gone towards Philippines. Why towards Philippines? Because that's closer to Taiwan. So, but closer home in the Gulf of Tonkin, they've not been able to stop Vietnam from doing what it wants to do. So the fact which I said, the 10 declines of China, it is overstretched. Military is overstretched. Period. The limits of Chinese overstretch are here. Now NATO is also threatening to come here. Entire Europe feels, look, they are at risk from China. They don't want to do deals with China. They say we are already over-invested in China. So as a result, through NATO, they want to enter the Indo-Pacific. That's bad news for China. So there's this article, and this article is very interesting. He says, is China promising a new world order or making a self-serving power play? I find it very funny that South China Morning Post comes out with such an article. It is such articles which tell you there's some problem in China. This goes completely against Xi Jinping's idea of Sino-centric world order. Yet South China Morning Post comes. Why does South China Morning Post come out with such an article? It comes out because it is owned by Alibaba and Jack Ma. And Jack Ma is very clearly affiliated with Hu Jintao and all those people. After all, Hu Jintao and Jack Ma were good friends. And Hu Jintao encouraged Alibaba to go out. This is what tells you that there's problem in China. I mean, I go by facts. And my discussion, my analysis is fact-based. So when Lee's Real Talk or whoever gives you all those, they might be right. I mean, for me, that's only an input. So at the end of the day, what do I infer? What is happening in China? That's what I'll get back to that. China, there is problem, internal problem. Until that internal problem is resolved, I don't think that they're going to be a force in world affairs. Their economy is in tatters. They have to recover. And that recovery is not going to take place. And that is why I go back to the 10 declines of China. See that video again. Now, those 10 declines have actually put together with facts in this. It has implications for us. Let's not have any doubts about it. But I'll talk about them another day, because today I thought, let me get into China. How do we handle China? How do we handle Pakistan? How do you handle Bangladesh? How do we handle the new Middle East? And how do you handle the new Far East? How do you handle Europe? How do you handle USA? I think we need to have a new strategy. And what that new strategy, I'll do a separate program on that. Right? With this, thanks a lot. Thanks a lot for joining in. I'm so grateful. All those who have joined, I've joined from either through Gunnershot or from Clause. Do subscribe to both the channels, right? And for me, Clause or Gunnershot are interchangeable. A lot of my content comes from Clause, and people from let me also explain to you. People who come and speak on Clause are actually world class. Other day I saw my friend, who was the ex-SFC commander speaking. We commanded divisions together. He went on to become the SFC in C, and he was speaking a lot about nuclear issues and all that. They're top guys. The chaps who come on Clause channel are the best in the business, right? And the same guys, of course, come to Gunnershot also. If you want to hear sense, come to both these channels, right? I have no problem. If you want to hear masala, you can go many places. And my talk will only be based on facts and hard analysis. Why I'm telling you this is, Some people have come out again and said, sir, make it in 45 minutes, make it in half an hour, make it this. I'll agree. I mean, you'll see that if I didn't spend this 55 minutes today on this subject, could I have finished it and made you understand? If I did speak more on any topic which I touched, let me know. If you feel I could have reduced certain topics today, also let me know.